how's it going and where am I at now? So I think it's going pretty good. Pretty good. I went from struggling hard learning my first 500 Korean words. I use Talk to Me in Korean a lot. It's kind of my go-to. There's a bunch of things that are my go-to, but like Talk to Me in Korean is, I think, is one of the most, or if not the most well-known language resource for Korean learners, and for a reason. They are amazing. So let me see how I'm gonna do this. I think I'm gonna open Anki on my laptop for the first time in forever to show you some stuff. I usually do my vocab stuff on my phone. So where am I at after a year? Basically, yeah, how's it going? Where am I at, etc. I am actually really happy with the progress I've made. I could probably be further than I am, but I am trying to not compare too much and stuff, and kind of let this like perfectionism go and be kind of like, I'm gonna learn it when I learn it. It's fine as long as I kind of continue, just trust the process. It's cool. But I mean, I made a lot of progress. I struggled so hard. When I started my first Anki deck. Okay, so for those of you watching who don't know what that is, I'm using for vocabulary stuff. Oh, I don't want to get into explaining again. I'm using an SRS. SRS stands for Spaced Repetition System. Basically, this is a scientifically backed thing that uses the forgetting curve. The forgetting curve is how fast we forget new information. And they found out that the best way to memorize things, to remember things, is to revise them just before you're about to forget them. And this takes a certain amount of time. It's slightly different for everyone, but it averages out at about the same for every human. SRS, spaced repetition systems, are basically algorithms of flashcards. So it's flashcards mainly. Algorithms that are built to make you revise a certain new information that you learned at hopefully just the right moment before you forget it. You're about to forget it. And the interval at which interval of time and like how much time passes before you see that same information again gets longer and longer until it, the aim is basically to put it into your long-term memory instead of just your working memory, which is the short-term memory. Anki is the most famous one. It's free for desktop. The app costs something, but it's worth it for me because I literally only use my phone. It doesn't matter. Anyway, Anki is very famous. Some people get super kind of crazy with it. I am not a huge fan because like making my own cards, blah. But for the very beginning, to learn the very basic vocabulary and stuff, it's really good, especially if there are pre-made decks already. You can download pre-made decks from the internet, etc. Look it up if you're interested. I really don't want to explain. But I started with the TTMIK, Talk to Me Korean book called My First 500 Korean Words. There isn't a pre-made Anki deck for that with audio and everything. And I remember, oh my God, like having the hardest time. Some words just wouldn't stick. And I ended up ditching the cards and I was just like, I'm never gonna learn this word. It's just not happening. I am never learning this word. I'm still doing the Anki reps sometimes for this very first deck that I did, although I have today I have 0 cards. Usually I have 1 or 2, but let's see, let's find a card. This for example.
시원하다.
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 I just wouldn't remember this word. Oh my gosh. For your information, it means refreshing, cool, like a beverage is 시원하다, for example. Can be. Not only, but can be. I would not remember this word. Or nenjango. Sorry, my pronunciation is horrible. As I told you, I haven't practiced that yet, but fridge, the word for fridge, I would not remember. That kind of stuff. It's all words that I know now. I recognize instantly. But when I was learning them, I was like, I'm never gonna learn this word. It's impossible. Fuck it. I can't. Oh my God. And I would beat myself up about it and all of that stuff. But the thing is, because I learned English this way already, without realizing that I did, I have an advantage to some other learners who are trying immersion because I know that the process works. I already know. So I trust this method. I trust that process. I know it's gonna happen. So it's easier for me to go, okay, whatever, fuck this word. Like, I'm gonna learn it later. If it's important, it'll come up again. And they all did. So I think all of the words in the first 500 word deck are definitely words that are kind of more common. And I know all of them 100% now. I don't know what my exact word count is because I'm like way above. But like, yeah, so I went from struggling to understand these kind of words to struggling with like my first simple grammar sentences, like this deck. Let's see. I'm just trying to find, I want to find a card that I know for a fact I had a hard time with. I don't know. I don't even remember which ones were hard anymore because all of these cards are so easy now. So the first deck that I started with is a pre-made deck from a guy called Retro. So the Retro decks for beginner learners, they're the only ones I'm using. I'm probably not going to use any Anki decks anymore when I'm through with all of his because they're really good pre-made decks and they use the audio files and the example sentences of these books. Korean Grammar in Use. This is the beginner one. I have all three of them. There's a beginner, intermediate, and advanced one. They're really good to look up stuff. And the thing is, so I got them because there's like a bunch more example sentences and things in there, and I like it. It's a good looking up resource stuff. But like, yeah, at the start, it's like stuff like this. Preview.
민우 씨가 저에게 정말 아름답다고 했어요.
It's like really simple sentences. Yes.
문 좀 닫아주세요.
문 좀 닫아주세요. I love it. So stuff like that. And I remember, like, you know, when a new card came up, struggling to understand it. So the way I actually did this is I just got the deck. On the deck, there is, on the front of the card, you only have the image and it automatically plays the audio. And then when
문 좀 닫아주세요.
when you click it, the reverse side is not an English translation, but it's just the sentence in Hangul. So if I didn't understand something, like every time I came across a new concept, the way I use this deck is like such, and the way I use the next decks as well. So this is the Retro beginner grammar sentences deck that is all taken from this stuff. I would literally, copy the entire sentence, put it into Papago, which is a really good translator for Korean, and, look up what it all means. If there's only one word I didn't understand, I would only look up that one word in the Naver dictionary. If I didn't understand the grammar structure, like if I couldn't figure it out myself, I would go to YouTube and literally my go-to grammar lookup resource, and he's amazing, is Go Billy Korean, who is I believe he's American. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe Canadian. I think he's American. He's an American who is fluent in Korean. He teaches Korean online, and he has these amazing videos. So he does live YouTube lectures about specific grammar points. And he's really fun. He's really entertaining. He explains it very clearly. He has example sentences and everything. And then after the live lectures, he puts up, like a couple days later or something, shortened versions of the live lectures. And they're only like maximum, I think the longest one is like 20 minutes that I've seen. So they're very short and condensed, and like 9.5 times out of 10, if I need to look up a grammar point, Go Billy has a short live lesson lecture video on it. So I would literally go on YouTube. I would put in on my phone. I still can't type Korean on a laptop. It's impossible. I would literally like copy the grammar structure, or what I figured the grammar structure was, because in the beginning you can't always tell. Like type in that structure in Hangul, and then put in Go Billy or Billy Korean, and like, I swear to God, 99 times out of 100, I want to say, so 9 times out of 10, he has the lesson, and he has a very concise, like 12 to 13 minute long video that explains a grammar point to you, which made me understand the grammar point. And then I would understand it, I would move on to the next card. And I would do this with every card in the deck. And so now all of these sentences, these beginner sentences, are very easy for me.
아침을 먹고 나서 신문을 봅니다.
So stuff like that. Then moving on, when I was done with that deck, I moved on to Retro's intermediate grammar sentences. I actually have some reps to do here, so let's do that. That's the next deck, so it's like one up. Throughout this entire time, I am like avidly watching K-drama. Technically, you're kind of supposed to watch it, you know, if possible, without native like subtitles. But fuck that. I'm sorry. I can't do it. I need to know what happens, and I need to know the detail of the sentences. Like I've been learning Korean for a year. I understand quite a bit now. I'm still not high level enough to follow K-drama in my comprehension. It's too fast and it's too much specialized vocabulary. And I do not have the patience for the ambiguity to watch K-drama without subtitles, even a year after starting immersing. I can't. I have to watch them with subs. The thing is, though, even though it's less effective, I know, but I still learn stuff. I still pick up a word here and there, and I use Language Reactor as well, so I try to, for those dramas that do have Korean subtitles available, I have the Korean subtitles and the English ones underneath, unhidden though, and I try to read along with the Korean subtitles and just sort of half check the English ones. It depends on the mood that I'm in. But anyway, so throughout doing my Anki decks and stuff, I'm trying to immerse as well. I'm trying to watch as much stuff as possible in Korean. I'm trying to listen to stuff. Although at this point I was concentrating hard on like kind of going through the grammar books. I was doing the Talk to Me in Korean, you know, reading through them and taking notes and stuff. The reason I take notes is not even to like, I never look at the notes again, but it's kind of this, I enjoy the kind of, you know, transferring the lesson almost. It's kind of, I don't know, I had fun with it. Basically, I'm trying to have fun, as much fun as possible. And I was really curious and interested in like the grammar and the stuff. And so that's what I was doing mainly. Right, let's do some intermediate grammar sentences study now.
이 채소는 어떻게 할까요?
먼저 다듬어가지고 냉장고에 넣어주세요. 샐러드는 조금 후에 만들 거예요.
All right, so basically the sentences get longer and slightly more complex. And same with this, same method. I still use it. I mean, I'm done with this deck now, but I use it for the vocabulary ones. If I don't understand the sentence, I would literally copy the entire, no qualms. I'd copy the entire sentence, throw it into Papago and be like, oh, okay, this is what it means. And Papago is really cool because it also, when it can, it lists the individual words and what they mean and stuff. So just so I know what the sentence means for my first repetition. And when I would do reps and stuff, if I don't remember a word, and it's not even always the grammar point, or if I don't remember a word, I would fail the card, right? And it would come back earlier. But when I understand it, even if I can't translate every single word, if I understand the gist of, like, if I understand the sentence, I would, you know, move on.
친구들에게 다시 연락하려고요?
네, 친구들에게 연락해가지고 약속 시간을 좀 미루려고 해요.
It's nice, it's really funny because this is really slow to me now. When I started this deck, I was like, why are they talking so fast again? So I listened to it on repeat. But this deck, to me, it sounds like they're talking in slow motion right now. But it's awesome. So like that's how amazing it is, I think. Like it kind of gets harder and harder. I understand all of these now.
책에 포스트잇이 많이 붙어 있네요.
저는 중요한 부분마다 포스트잇을 붙이거든요.
포스트잇을 붙이거든요. Yeah, I'm starting to try and like imitate the sentences now, but like starting. But usually I just do it silently. I'm not very good. I'm like super too shy at trying to actually speak Korean yet. I know I also have a horror from it because I have immersed enough now that I know what Korean sounds like. So when I open my mouth and try and speak Korean, I literally cringe inside so hard because I can hear how terrible I am. But yeah, so it's like slightly longer sentences like this, you know.
방이 많이 깨끗해졌다지요?
네. 환경 단체들이 노력하지 않았더라면 이렇게 깨끗해지지 않았을 거예요.
Yeah, so stuff like this. But even there's some words that I forget where I'm like, okay, 단체 I can't even pronounce it. Tanjuldur. Tanje, I have no idea what this is. I'll look it up or something, but I won't fail the card because I figure if at this point I don't know this word yet, I don't need to know it yet. It's okay, it'll come up later. So let's go back. So that was the intermediate grammar sentences. So while I was still in the middle of the intermediate grammar sentence deck, I started with the Retro's Beginner Vocabulary Sentences deck, which I'm still not finished with. I still have about, so for the grammar decks, I did 10 cards a day for each, like for both of them, but I kind of did them more or less one after the other. But for the vocabulary sentence decks, I do 5 cards a day. The reason being that the reps you have to do, the repetitions you have to do, they kind of start adding up, especially even if you finished some decks, you will still have to do revisions, right? So there were times when I spent like 45 minutes on Anki and I was like, regularly getting into Anki debt, which is when you skip days and then your reps go really high. I don't actually enjoy Anki a lot. I enjoyed these decks because they're really well made and some of the sentences are actually really funny. So it's entertaining as well. But as soon as I am done with all of these pre-made decks and when I feel like I don't have to do any revisions anymore with the retro vocabulary decks, I'm probably going to stop doing Anki because I tried starting to make my own cards in the beginning. I have a Jill versus Hangugo deck that has like a couple of 300 cards or something. I never use it. I never use it. I hate making cards. I can't, the effort, I don't wanna, like even doing reps is hard enough. So I need a deck that has like a visual and some audio on it, like some native speakers saying the thing. And like, I cannot make a deck like that because the effort it would take me to like take a sentence out of a drama, get the audio, put an image on it. And like, that's one card. No, I can't. And even that deck that I have, it's only written. So it's the simplest kind of cards. And I fucking hated making cards. I just can't do it. So I will abandon Anki probably within the next year. But it's okay because the thing is, in my opinion, for those of you who also have a hard time with Anki, it's fine. It's very useful in the very beginning when you need to get your first 2,000, 3,000 words, however you can, or in this case, first 500 words and then some grammar or whatever. I don't know how many cards are in the vocabulary decks. I think about 1,000 or a few, 2,000 each or something, 1,000 each. I think it's very useful for that. But even now, like I continue it now because I only have 2 active decks where I get new cards. So the reps stay high, which is the Retro's Beginner Vocabulary Sentences and the Retro's Intermediate Vocabulary Sentence. I have 5 new cards each a day. And it takes me between, if I don't have Anki debt, to do these plus the old ones, it takes me under 20 minutes. So that's okay. I can deal with that. I'll continue this for a while. But technically, I don't need it anymore because I'm at a comprehension level that is high enough for me to be able to engage with stuff that's kind of for preschoolers-ish, that I can kind of understand this, like this type of book, which actually somebody from the Refold Discord server sent me. It was kind enough because she didn't need it anymore. So it's mine now and it's beautiful and it has like lovely illustrations, which appeals to my artsy nature and stuff. I still have to look stuff up. I mean, I love this story. It's actually one of my favorite books in English, but so I know roughly the story and what's going on. But I do still need to look stuff up. So, and my reading speed is very slow. Yeah, anyway, this video is all over the place. I'm sorry. And it's very long. I apologize. Where was I? All right, so yeah, I think it's absolutely no problem to drop Anki as soon as you got your use out of it in the beginning, if you're not the type to enjoy making cards and that kind of thing. I think it's much more useful to spend your time immersing. So reading, watching, listening, etc. Yeah, so the beginner vocabulary sentences are slightly, well, they're fairly easy now for me. But at the start, when I started this deck, I had to do my copy paste into Papago thing for like almost every sentence because there were more than 2 words more than one or two words that I didn't understand, or sometimes I didn't understand the whole sentence. Now it's becoming, with both actually the beginner vocabulary sentence and the intermediate vocabulary sentence decks, it's beginning to be rarer and rarer that I have to paste the entire sentence into Papago. Usually now I only have to look up a word or two, which is basically it's +1 sentences where you understand all of the sentence except for one word. So I literally, just going through the decks, I can measure my progress. You know, I went from barely understanding the beginner grammar sentences, which is like really, really easy stuff, to now being able to, okay, I'm going to show you a couple of sentences in the beginner vocabulary sentences. All right, let's go.
저는 자가용을 타고 회사에 갑니다. 어느 팀을 응원하고 싶어요?
There we go. Sentences like this.
저는 좀 더 활동적인 사람이 되고 싶어요.
Aww, me too. There's some really fun ones though. I think there's one. I think one of my favorite cards is one that's like, 왜 문이 안 열리지? And the answer is like, 던지지 말고 미세요. And I had to laugh so hard when I came up because that's me. Like every single time, it's not obvious on the door whether you're supposed to push or pull. So it's very entertaining as well. So it's the vocabulary deck, and the sentences are a little longer and a little more complex, but it's still relatively simple.
가을이 되니까 먼 곳으로 여행을 떠나고 싶어요.
Yes, same. I mean, it's spring now, not fall, but and then the intermediate vocabulary sentences become a lot more complex. So I do have to put a caveat here. So I understand most of them already now, where I only have to look up a word or two, but there are strewn in, so around in the vocabulary decks, what they are starting to do as well is to mix up 반말 and 존댓말 sentences. So it's very, they're setting a scene, you know, there's dialogues between, you know, where you're like, okay, those guys are colleagues, or those guys are friends or lovers. And then there's also some sentences that are in the narrative form. And they're usually very formal narrative form. So stuff that you would maybe see on work reports or weather reports or in the news and stuff. And that crap, I swear to God, I do not understand. Like, it's too hard for me. I can't. Every time a sentence like that comes up, I'm like, ugh. There are some few that I understand, but like I always have like the biggest endorphin rush when a sentence in that style comes up and I actually understand it, because most of the time I feel like a freaking idiot. Like, I just can't. I can't. So these are the intermediate sentences. Let's see.
왜 이렇게 늦게 왔어?
여기까지 오는 길을 잘 몰라서 헤맸어.
There you go. So that's a 반말 one. Like, why are you so late? So that's fairly easy, but there's some more complex ones. Let's see.
이 헬스클럽은 넓고 시설도 참 좋네요.
네, 그래서 다른 곳보다 조금 비쌉니다.
조금 비쌉니다. Yeah, I don't know. I find these really easy now, but
나는 올가가 왜 그러는지 모르겠어. 정말 이해할 수 없어.
올가도 이유가 있을 거야. 입장을 바꿔서 생각해봐.
there we go. So this is a new sentence, but I understand most of this. So in this case, I think, yeah, there we go. 입장 is something that I would look up because I don't know what that is. But every other word in these sentences I know. And yeah, so it's, you know, it's acted well, and as you can tell, it's a little faster as well than the intermediate grammar ones where I'm like slow motion. This is still not, you know, like native speed is still faster than this. But yeah, the sentences get more complex, etc. And I personally love these decks. They're really good. And yeah, so with even within those, I can tell how much progress I've made because I can understand sentences like that now fairly easily. Yeah, so that's yay. It's kind of cool. One of the things that I do enjoy the Anki reps for is to remind me of my progress, because when I do like reps for the old decks, I'm like, oh, this is so easy. And so I'm kind of reminded of where I started, because I might see a card that I know for a fact was really hard for me and I just couldn't get into my brain. And now I don't even have to try and I understand it. And it's really motivating, you know? So let me move on to kind of, let's see.